Okay, nice to see you all, and welcome to an education session on taping, the modern method, and taping as we probably should have been doing many years ago, but at the time not having all the tools. So now we have three category of tapes, and the fantastic thing about the Strapit brand is that it's the only one in the world that offers the three categories in the one company or under the one banner. And the most commonly used tape, family first, is the rigid tape. So we have our options for our pre-wrap. So we have the general pre-wrap itself, or we have the new Flex-It, which I'll talk about. And on top of that, we have our different type of rigid tapes. We have the athletic tapes. We also have the more stronger Leuko-P type tapes. So they form the rigid tape family. And the second family that's very popular in the last 15 years have been the Kinesiology tapes. So that's the second family of tapes, doing a different job than the first family, the rigid tapes. And the final family is the active tapes. So again, a different tape, a different product, a different method, and working on different tissues. And that's really a nice place to start in terms of what's the difference. Now, the way we teach in our company, it's Australian method, is tissue targeted taping. So tissues have certain properties, so the tape should mimic the tissue. For example, muscles and tendons store potential energy and create kinetic energy. So potential energy, kinetic energy. Now, the thing that acts like this is a bungee. So bungee is store energy and release, okay? So the active tape is a bungee, is a tape that mimics the tissue. The tissue acts like a bungee, and so does the tape, okay? So again, there's only a couple of brands in the world, but the tape is very springy. It has a memory. The active tape also has the four-way stretch, okay? Again, muscles move over joints in different planes, so the tape is clever. It has a four-way stretch. It mimics muscles and the tendons, okay? So that's the first family. Now the second, which is the most commonly used one, is the rigid tape. Now, if we talk about tissue targeted taping, what structures, soft tissues I should say, or connective tissues, are generally stiff? Ligaments, okay? So we talk about locking up and stabilizing joints, but what we're really doing is we're getting the tape to mimic the ligament, okay? So ligaments are strong and they don't store and release energy, they just hold it in the tape. And rigid tape is the same. It's like a ligament, so it tries to mimic or copy that tissue when we apply the tape. So that's for stability, okay? And the last family is the kinesiology tape. Okay, so kinesiology tape stores and releases energy, but only in one plane, and it's very gentle and soft. And it mimics another tissue, which is the skin and the fascia, okay? Which is a detection system, which waits for information, has pain receptors, has mechanoreceptors, has vessels as well, and the tape can mimic those tissues for various ways and reasons to assist us as therapists, okay? So let me talk a bit about quickly and show you the application of the rigid tape. Now, the most common taping technique in the world is to tape the lateral ligament complex of the ankle, okay? We all do it. We do it in every country, and we do it because this ligament can tear commonly, and what we need to do is to then, while it's damaged, in the acute phase, or it could be chronic, we want something to copy and protect the joint and mimic that ligament, which is our rigid taping system. Now, I know in some countries, people prefer to use the pre-wrap, okay, which is a very fine foam. Now, this you can use, but what we know now with some new evidence is that when you put this on someone's ankle, for example, and we apply this underneath the rigid tape, unfortunately, when you tape the ankle joint and you have your rigid taping complex, when we have the rigid tape on top, what happens is that the pre-wrap moves too much, okay? So if the pre-wrap moves too much and our objective is stability, that doesn't make sense, because if we're moving but we want protection, there's no correlation. So as a therapist, I'm always looking for something better to make sure I have stability. And this is where the Flexit comes into play. So this is a very, very clever product. It's a bit coarse, okay? And the reason why it has that nice edge to it is that when we put it on the skin, it creates like a second skin, so that you have this connection to the skin, so there's no slip. Now, I as a physiotherapist do not want any slip. Okay, so Cam pops his foot up here, and it is the same process. You can apply it the same. You can go top to bottom or bottom to top. I don't care how you do it, but you have to take the stretch out of the tape, okay? So the Flexit comes from the cohesive family, but it is much different to a normal cohesive bandage. It's much stronger, it's much stiffer. And what it does, it protects and stops that movement that the pre-wrap makes happen. Too much movement. Physio, I don't want movement. Okay, so with the Flexit, obviously I missed a little bit here, but that's okay for demonstration. With the Flexit, it's the same principle as the pre-wrap, okay? You put your rigid tape over the top. You can start with your stirrup system, foot up, okay? So we go through all the same processes, except we have the Flexit, which creates that very nice stability, so we don't get all those movements, okay? So now I know there's various methods of taping, and so it depends on what you prefer, okay? So in Australia, we do a general taping system with stirrups, sixes, figure eights, heel locks, that's it. But I do know in some other countries, there is a method of preference to do horseshoe strips like this. Okay, so we can do our horseshoe strips to create more of a basket weave. So whatever you choose to do is fine, but the take-home message, the important part is that I'm telling you that the Flexit needs to be underneath. The pre-wrap, it's not stable. And that's the aim as a therapist, to create that stability. So I want you now to get your hands on some of the Flexit and try that as your underwrap. Now, one really good thing is that, again, I'm going back to my point, tissue targeted taping. What was the tissue here I tried to protect? Ligament. What tape did I use for that system? Rigid tape. It reflects the tissue, okay? Very important. Now, we're going to take this off here. The second one we're going to talk about is the kinesiology. Now, everyone uses kinesiology, and a lot of people use it not because they really know a lot about it, but it's easy to use. It's not tricky. Taping an ankle takes time and practice. Kinesiology, 1 hour and you're an expert. It's not hard to use. That's why we like to use it. Now, one thing about kinesiology tape is, what does it really work on? What's the evidence say? And the evidence says that kinesiology tape can't do everything, okay? What it works on is a number of systems. Your pain modulation, so your nociceptors. It also works on the mechanoreceptors, but not so much, okay? Some proprioceptive assistance, but only a little bit, okay? If I put the tape on the ankle, does my sway get better immediately? No, the body's not that smart. But we are aware of the tape, so we detect it, but in terms of protection and a reaction to that, it certainly is not immediate. Blood flow, yes. Lymphatic drainage, yes. Muscle support, not directly. I know a number of you therapists think if I put kinesio tape over my knee or my ankle, I'm suddenly a better athlete. You might be, but that's called placebo, okay? The benefits of kinesiology tape to muscles are indirect. So pain relief, muscles like that. Less swelling, muscles like that. But does the tape suddenly make the muscle switch on through a loop up the brain and down? No. So if you've been told that or you think that, I'm challenging your concepts because the evidence is not there for that. Now, one thing, if we look here with the kinesiology tape, is that if we get our patients, if we apply the tape in the stretched position, as they flex up, we get a very big lift. We can see that. We can see the skin lift, and we can see here, there's this bunching effect that you would not see normally. Now, that becomes a micro pump. So as we go up and down, and we see those contours in the skin, over 24 hours, two things. One, like we rub our leg when we hurt ourselves, it's manipulating the nociceptors. And two, it's helping with fluid movement, okay? Lymphatic drainage is gentle. It's not hard massage, it's very gentle movement of a passive system. So this is the beauty of this tape, is it applied correctly, it assists that. Okay, so the summary is kinesiology tape has a certain properties to mimic fascia and skin, which have blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, mechanoreceptors and nociceptors. Rigid tape, ligament, stability, stiffness. The last one is muscle tendon, okay? So here we have a different concept. So I'll get Cam to come and sit up to the end here of the table, and I want to show you a technique on the wrist. Now, tennis elbow is common, something we see all the time, but let's just say it again. Tennis elbow, what is it? It's a problem of the extensor muscle group. Generally, it's a load-based issue of the muscle group. Active tape, the other category, works on load management. Just like a bungee takes load when you jump off a bridge and brings you back and stops you hitting the earth, it's energy in, energy out. Muscles have energy in, energy out. We need to put that energy somewhere else. Strapping tape doesn't do it. Kinesiology tape doesn't do it well. Active tape is the key. Let me show you a demonstration. All right, so I've got Cameron's wrist here. All right, so, yep, perfect shot. So, sorry, reach back. Okay, so, again, we talk about against gravity, most constant force in the world. And as Cam holds his wrist up, how does he hold his wrist up? What's working? His muscles. If he didn't have muscles, he wouldn't lift his wrist up. As Cam lowers his wrist slowly, how are these muscles working? Eccentric, okay? Contracting, but lengthening. If he didn't have muscles, he'd just flop, okay? That's the control mechanism of our body. Now, if Cam has tennis elbow, and I want Cam to have offloading while he's in rehab, I need to take in this example, the energy, the eccentric energy out of the muscle. And this is the only tape that does it like the muscle wants it to. Okay, so Cam puts his wrist in full extension, so we don't stretch, we shorten, we take up 10 to 20% of the slack in the tape. Okay, so, and then I just get Cam to straighten up again for me a bit, and we massage the active tape in. So immediately we have a bungee system over the wrist joint, and they're the muscles that are being compromised in tennis elbow. Okay, so now as Cam will relax his wrists, he might tell us what's happening. What do you feel, Cameron?
Yep, so I can definitely feel some pulling and some sensation through that tape. A lot more supportive as well when I'm going through that movement.
So what happens is that because now there's a support strut on the eccentric or extensor muscle group, as Cam normally lowers his wrist against gravity, now he's actually using his flexors concentrically. It's an energy shift. Now, if Cameron was a tradesman or someone in an active job and he had a tear and he said to me, I have to go back to work, I work for myself, then we might say, well, we don't want you to have a splint on, but we want you to have a functional splint, which means that you still go through true motion, but you are protected to a percentage in that muscle group. So Cam again goes through that extension, holds it in, and I lay the tape down, and then just like a bigger person needs a thicker bungee cord, based on Cam telling me that he is working in a profession that's hard labour, I give him a double layer, a thicker bungee, and now Cam will tell us that it's completely different.
Yeah, completely different again. So that tape
Is
getting it all down the opposite side.
So any part of the body, Achilles, knee, quads, posture, take the energy out of the system, the active system, which is the muscles and tendon units, and put that energy into a tape that reflects that. Okay? We'll do a webinar soon. We'll run some courses. But the summary is the tape needs to copy the tissue. And a very important point, kinesiology tape doesn't support muscles like you might think or was taught from another brand. The tape works on the skin and fascia and indirectly helps the muscles. Very important point. Thanks for your time. And any questions, you can shoot my email, paul@strapit.com.au. We're out.